Hello.
Hello. Welcome
Should
back to the
you do?
Coaching Mixer. I'm cold.
Yeah, welcome back to the coaching mixer. I'm cold too. It got cold. What happened? You look very warm though.
I put my hat on. Between working, getting a treatment, and I'm going to go to the sauna after this.
That sounds
Oh, just
magical.
yeah. You were away. How was your trip?
I was away and then you were
I was
away
away
and
too.
now we're back and we're together. My trip was amazing. It was really, really wonderful. I saw so many things, ate so much good food. It was definitely a lot of culture shock and like there were a lot, it was a different travel experience than I've had before. Like it took a lot more to adapt to things and to like learn the ropes and figure out how to pay for stuff because everything. And I went to China. I know you know that. I don't know if everyone else knows it, but I went to Shanghai and yeah, basically it's like mostly a cashless
Oh,
society, not like
wow.
entirely, but also like you don't really use credit cards that often. So it's like all payment through apps, which like figuring out how to make my phone work and how to make the apps work was definitely
How
a
to speak
struggle.
Chinese.
Yeah, that didn't happen so much. How to use my Google Translate.
So
Was
good.
more what I did. Yeah, but it was amazing. And I feel like I'm finally over the jet lag, I think. So that's also wonderful.
Gosh. Well, welcome back. Welcome to everybody
Thank
listening.
you.
We
Welcome back.
are like, this is, I think, our 14th episode.
Ooh, look
So,
at
yeah,
us.
I know. Look at us chatting. And we're teetotaling today. It's not exactly the middle of the day, but I have responsibilities for my children tonight. I was like, I'm probably going to need to drive somewhere. So let's drink tea. What are
maybe
you drinking
maybe
today?
tea.
Yes.
Okay. So I am drinking a Korean tea that's like an herbal tea. It's like lavender and chrysanthemum and stuff. And I
Wow.
actually got it from Korea. Jordan and I went to a wedding a few years ago. And it's like one of those ones that's so nice. I like don't ever drink it because I'm like, I want to save it. But I'm glad that I'm having a reason to drink it.
Yeah. I'm glad you're drinking it because tea like loses its potency over time. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had
What are you
big plans.
drinking?
I was like, I'm going to make something very fancy. I'm going to do a tea latte. But then it was just so chilly here today. We've had snow. It has been like, I
Wow.
was in the Bahamas last week and then came home
Oh
and there was a
boy.
snowstorm. And I was like,
Canada's like, hey, welcome back.
welcome to Canada. So I am going old school. I have a black tea. It's called the Champion and it's from Fire Belly Tea. So I don't know if you have David's tea or if you've heard of David's tea. It was like a big deal here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think is that like a chain
It's a chain
of
and
like tea shop?
the founder sold the company, left the company and then started a tea company that has like it's more pure. Like he doesn't have the candies that the other tea company kind of like has. So
Mm,
I've been really enjoying a bunch of their teas, and this is one of their black teas, and
nice.
it's delicious and it's like hearty and just some milk and sugar.
That sounds amazing. Honestly, I was a little confused when you're like, I'll make something fancy. I was like, how does one make a fancy tea? I was imagining you like you dried the tea leaves yourself or
Yeah.
something and you were gonna like gather them from the garden.
Listen, I actually do have a tea. I do have tea plant seeds, and they were growing really well this summer. And then my newest cat decided to eat them. Yes.
No.
I was just like, what are you doing? So I have a couple more of them. So I'm going to try them over the winter. I have
Mhm.
a little grow light that some of my herbs are still surviving and thriving with right now, but I'm going to someday soon. Yeah.
That's very rude of your cat. I'm assuming they're like not toxic to cats or anything.
I
Like the
mean,
cat is
if they are,
fine.
it didn't seem to bother her. She quite enjoyed it. She went
She
back and
probably
like
was
I had
a little
one and then
hyper.
she ate the other one. Yeah, it was they were not somewhere she could even really get to. She's not a tiny cat. She's a very large cat and she somehow shimmied up to find them. So I guess they were delicious.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that bodes well when you figure out how to grow them without the cat eating them.
I will be growing them in the office, I think.
Yeah.
I've got my little winter herb set up out here and they're pretty happy. So
yeah. Awesome.
All right. What are we talking about today?
Before we jump into that, just like quickly, how was the Bahamas?
It's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been a bunch of times. We go to like the same resort every time. My kids go down water slides for 4 days straight. It is a lot of walking, a lot of activity, a lot of swimming, and my parents really enjoy it. So we go with them. We kind of piggyback on their trip, and it's so nice to be warm and it's not so far away.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yay.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, as you were, I think, introducing our topic for today, do you want to give an overview or like
we were kind of talking about this, I think, at the end of one of our recordings, and I know we've sort of touched on this topic before, but I think about this a lot because coaching can be a really intimate experience for a client. Like very often, it doesn't totally matter what niche of coaching you're doing. Quite likely you as a coach are going to be sometimes the one person that your client trusts to say things out loud to that they've maybe never shared with anyone. You're someone who they can explore the practical issues that are going on for them and the internal ones. And I've gone through things with clients like total breakdown of like their internal conditioning, their spiritual or religious beliefs. And I was really wondering, because I know this has probably come up for you as well, what is the role of bringing our own personal, maybe spiritual, maybe religious beliefs into coaching?
Yeah, this is such a juicy topic. I think
it might trigger some people.
It might, yeah.
It'd be controversial.
Yeah, I think there are like, I don't know, there's like a lot of different levels to this question. Because I know that there are a lot of coaches out there who like their niche is their spiritual or religious practice.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, like on the one level, I think that's awesome that like people can find almost a shorthand for like if it's important to them that their coach shares certain beliefs, that they know how and where to find that.
Yeah.
And I think it's always important as a coach to be able to hold space for the client's experience and like center the client's perspective and experience above and beyond what my personal beliefs are. And if there's like a larger incompatibility to the point that I'm like coming up against my own like moral values, that I, rather than like pushing them on the client, that I notice that and maybe like acknowledge this is not the right client coach pairing.
Yeah.
And like send them on their way. I don't know. What are your initial thoughts on this topic?
I agree with you. I think it's really complicated. The story that keeps coming up is I had a client I worked with for a number of years. And when we started working together, it was really important to her that I was not part of her former religion. She had been in a really high demand religion. And one of the questions she asked me with a lot of trepidation on the call was like, are you this religion? And I was like, no. I'm like, I can be trained. It was a Christian religion, but it was like a really specific type of Christianity. And I was like, I'm not Christian. I'm like, if that's I'll be totally transparent with you. If that's an issue at all. And she was like, it isn't. She's like, I think I actually need to work with this with somebody who doesn't have those particular beliefs, because she told me that she had worked with a therapist who was part of her religion and spent much of the therapy trying to push her back into believing in her religion.
Oh, no.
And his explanation for that was like, I'm practicing my religion by keeping you in the religion.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh my God. I didn't make that face for her at the time, but we worked together for a number of years, and I think it was really helpful. My ignorance about that particular path, like I know a little bit, but it's never a religion that I've personally practiced. I know a lot of people who are Christian. I know enough from like world religion class in grade 11, but because I didn't hold a lot of those beliefs, it was like a free space for her to bounce those things off of.
Right.
And that experience actually made me really think about, I'm very honest about my spiritual beliefs with people. And I preface a lot of like, this is just going to be where I'm coming from because of my spiritual beliefs. But in coaching, I'm like, I'm a safe person to question your spiritual or religious beliefs with, because I have no agenda about it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that if you are looking for someone as a coach who shares your beliefs so that you can operate within them, and you're really happy with that belief system, but you want someone who gets it on that level, it can be so helpful to have somebody who's a coach and coaches specifically within your religion.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wonder, I'm like, those people are so transparent that if that's not where you're at and what you want, you're going to know. Like, I think that sometimes it's a service to your clients to say, hey, I'm, this type of a Christian coach, and this is who I help and what I do. I think that can be really beneficial so that the right people know you're right for them. The people who might not be a fit know you're not going to be a fit. It's just, I just think personally, it's never something I've wanted to like build my business around.
Right. Around your spiritual beliefs.
Yeah. Like I just feel like we do so much as coaches that is like so much for other people.
Right.
We use our lives as an example for other people. We're constantly like scanning our own experiences to give tools for other people. I'm like, I kind of want my spiritual and religious practice to be for me and for my personal growth, so that I can come to the table with a more open mind and less judgment. And
yeah. And also, I think I'm assuming you agree with this, but like, I don't think with that therapy, even if you do have a coaching practice or a therapy practice, though, obviously I'm not a therapist, I can't speak with an expertise on that. But I think if you do have a practice of serving people, even if you have it based around a certain religion, this is my belief, I don't think it's ever okay to like shut down a client's questioning or to try and lead a client in a direction that they're not necessarily wanting to be led in. Like, I think even if you have a framework that you've developed that's, I don't even know, like stemming from a certain belief system, I still think like personally, I think we have to be like client led in that way and acknowledge our own biases if we can't do that with integrity and let the client go, or at least state it out loud. Like, if it were important to me to further a certain belief system in the session, I would be like, hey, I'm noticing that you seem to be questioning these things. My inclination is to coach you in this direction. Is that where you actually want to go?
Yeah.
Same as I would, like, I am a creativity coach. I work with a lot of writers. I think it's like implicitly understood, like writing is not better, but like we're all kind of moving in the direction of more writing rather than less writing.
Yes.
If they were questioning their relationship to writing, I think it's important that I create space for them to question that freely, and that I not try and like push them into a space where they're like feeling like they have to write or else they're doing something wrong or damaging the coaching relationship.
And I think that's so hard. most people. Like, I'm even, as you were talking about, I was like, yeah, I'm like, I remember I had a client who hired me to help them with their business and then started questioning whether they wanted their business. And my first instinct was like, okay, this person needs like motivation. We've got to
Right.
like help them out. But then it was that story of my other client leaving their religion came up, and I was like, I totally have an agenda, because I'm like, I'm not doing my job if I'm not coaching this person on being a successful business owner. When I actually let that go, the person ended up shutting down their business.
Oh, amazing.
And it was like the perfect life move for her at the time. But I remember just feeling like I'm following where the client wants to go, and it feels really uncomfortable. And like, how am I going to help this person? And then I was like, yeah, actually, I'm a coach. I can help them with whatever. There's
right.
like, we don't need the pillar, whether it's the niche or the belief system or the stuff. Like, it was a healthy shift at that point for this person.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I actually had a similar experience where someone hired me to make money in their art business. And we coached for a couple of months on like breaking down every resistance. And like, by breaking down, I just mean like investigating it, creating space to question it, exploring it openly. And we it felt like we were just kind of going in circles, spinning our wheels for a while. And then it was like, do you actually want to be doing this? Like, I think those, I don't know, I don't think I said that explicitly, but I think those conversations started becoming that question. We couldn't ignore it anymore, because it was very clear there was like some resistance to that work. And yeah, I think, I could have, and maybe I did a little bit too much, not question that, just because of my own biases and because of what, this person hired me for explicitly.
Right.
But I think that was like the best thing for this client and she ended up shutting down her art business with joy, though. She was like, I'm getting a regular day job. I'm shutting down the art business. I feel great about this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that really speaks to why, even if you decide to have a hardcore, very specific niche as a coach, you also need to be well-rounded. Like, I know there's been a lot of people poo-pooing the general life coaching kind of track, but if you don't know how to coach on anything, you can only coach on like business or art or creativity or the religion that I think it is a disservice to the client, but it will also leave you in a place where if your client decides to go in another direction, if you have integrity, you're going to have to end that relationship.
Right.
You can't help them with where they want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of, you've mentioned that you have a very strong spiritual practice. I'm agnostic, so I'm like questioning everything. And like, I think that also, like, I bring my own perspective to conversations about religion. But even though you've decided not to incorporate your belief system into your niche, would you say it informs your approach to coaching? And like, how?
Yes. and I
say that because it's true for me, I think.
Totally. As well. I think anybody that claims that they are, I just don't know if you can actually separate it. I think it's important that you don't have to, it's tricky, right? Like, you want to bring enough of yourself and your life experience to the table that's relevant to the person that you're speaking with, but not so much so that it's overshadowing whatever they need. So it's not a secret. I've talked about it a million times on my own podcast, but I mean, I've been a practicing witch since I was 13. And I guess I would consider myself religious, as in I follow that religion. But one of the precepts of that religion, generally, not for every single person who practices, but one of the things is, it is a deeply personal practice. It is not a religion that goes out and recruits for people, because it's hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
And the way that works for many people is going to be very different. Mm-hmm. So the way that I practice might not be like what a friend of mine who's Wiccan, the way they practice may be very different. But I think that maybe the benefit of that is I really don't think that I have the one correct path for everybody out there. I'm really open to discovery. And it has, interestingly, I tend to attract people who are spiritually leaning. Over Halloween, I did this offer, which I do about once a year, but I did tarot paired with coaching. Amazing. So it was a session where I gave people a reading, but we talked about the cards that were coming up in relationship to their positioning. We coached around it. And what was really fascinating was actually a lot of the people who bought that session were my current clients. And I was like, just so you know, I always have cards here. So I can always pull cards if we're feeling stuck, or you just want a different type of information. I can tap into that really quickly. I've been doing it for a long time. But it was really fascinating because I know some of my clients would never be into that. And that's absolutely not part of their spiritual path. Right. But because I'm not like, ooh, this is the right way, and I've got to get everybody using tarot cards every day, or like doing full moon rituals every month, because that's not my energy, I think it has helped me attract people who are in that exploratory space. And I mean, I also taught yoga and meditation for, 16 years. So I've had lots of people with lots of really interesting mystical experiences around me. And even though I guess I'm religious, but it's not like got to get the people on board. Right. Make some new witches, get a new coven going here. Like, it's more like, how can we just help people find the path that is for them, and whether that's spiritually or with their work in the world or how they get to live. I think it's really helped. Yeah, it's hard for someone to surprise me with whatever they say. I think and maybe that's a benefit, is I've never been like, oh, you thought what? You said what? There's not a lot of pearl clutching that goes on in my coaching. So I think that there's like that as a benefit. And then somebody who is really religious and needs someone who understands their religion, they're going to gravitate more to that other person, probably not be that interested in working with me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, unless they're wanting someone with a different perspective. Sure. And also it sounds like you have an energy very much of like openness to all. So like they might actually be attracted to that.
Yeah. It's good. But I mean, at the same time, it kind of turns me off when people are like, as a consumer, I don't know that I would ever go and like work with someone who is like, I know someone who's like a therapist for witches. And I was like, that's kind of neat, but I don't know that I necessarily like have to have my therapist understand ritual format or understand the cycle of the seasons. Like, I just don't know that it's necessarily relevant to how much they can help me. My coach happens to be basically a witch as well, of a different kind of community, but it doesn't come up that often. It's just like she kind of understands the basic language, and if I talk about spirit guides, she's gonna get that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that might be more like that's like almost incidental to the more like core relationship that you have. Like maybe it's, I guess, like nice, or
it's nice, but
terrible like, to have, but like not a necessary.
It was not essential to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not why I hired her.
Right. Yeah. I guess I kind of have an interesting relationship with religion specifically, not as much spirituality, but I was actually raised in a very high control religion. And I left, and my parents left as well, when I was around like 12 or 13. So there's a part of me that actually like right now my beliefs are very far from that experience. It was a sect of Christianity, but I do find that I kind of like coaching people when it happens who are in that religion but are also like kind of open, or in a religious setting, but are questioning or open to it, just because I feel like there's a part of me that can speak that language a little bit, but now I'm in such a different place that I can bring like an interesting perspective. But again, it's important to me never to impose. Well, let me think. I mean, of course, I'm not like trying to impose my belief system, but I do have certain tenets of like my moral system that I'm like very open about, and I'm always going to be representing. And if I can't coach a client, if I feel that like what they're trying to move toward is in conflict with like my belief system, then I might just like call that out, and maybe I'm not the coach for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think for someone who's questioning, it actually really helps to maybe, it kind of goes back to that conversation we had about like, do you have to have experienced what your client is going through in order to effectively coach them? I think in some cases, like that is really helpful. I was in a cult, so not a witchcraft cult. That's
right. I think you mentioned that before, and I was like,
witchcraft is so like there's too many opinions.
Too loose and questioning. Right. Wait, okay. So when were you in a cult?
I mean, it sounds so dramatic when I say it like that. Like I was in a cult. It was a spiritual community, and it was definitely on the more like high demand side. Like Steve lived in one of the communities. Like he lived in the core community. That is where we met. And I know I always want to be really careful, because for a lot of people who are very close to the teacher, there were a lot of experiences that I think did really like hurt people, and were not as like benign as what I experienced. Nobody stole my money. There was no like weird sexual stuff. Like it was not what you think of when you watch those documentaries on Netflix. But for some people, they
Netflix sensationalizing.
Yeah. There were people who devoted like decades of their life, and then the teacher would be like, "Here's your teaching. You're out." Like just kick you out for.
Wow.
He was a extreme person for a lot of people. I was never that close with that teacher, and most of my experience with the community was very positive. I met some really incredible people. I met Steve there. Like our children wouldn't have existed without that community. But there was like, you were expected to go on retreat a couple of times a year. They were not cheap. They were like in Italy in the mountains. One was like a 5-star resort in Arizona. Like they were not, they were not inexpensive.
Very bougie cult.
Yes. And a lot of the people in the community were really impressive, which I think was the attractive thing for me at the time. Like they were people that were doing incredible work in the world, that were really all about like raising human consciousness, and loved that. But then there were just things about the ego of the person, as it always goes. The ego of the main person got in the way. And the whole thing kind of fell apart because he wasn't trusting the people who were his closest students and were advising him about the way the organization was going. It was just kind of like an admin mess that led to things falling apart. But even though my experience had largely been positive, so many of my core relationships were in that community. When it fell apart, I went through like a good 6 months where I just felt sort of aimless. And the other part is I wasn't really practicing witchcraft throughout those years that I was part of it, because it was like anything else, any other spiritual experience is a distraction. You should just be meditating. So I was like, I kind of felt untethered from the spirituality that I had grown up with and that I had really given myself. So when people are going through something where they've lost their core community, where maybe their families aren't connected to them, I get that. I remember not my family, but like the people who I spoke with the most, my best friends, my core relationships really fell away. And even more so maybe for Steve. And we kind of suddenly were like, we're just on our own being humans in the world, figuring out what we want now that there's not this larger global community that we're helping and supporting and doing this work for.
Right. This is like not at all on topic. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no.
At what point did you start calling it a cult? Or like when you were in it, I'm assuming you weren't like referring to it as such.
No,
that sounds like a more distanced thing.
And I'm like in polite company when I won't say that to someone I don't know. Everybody who's listening to this, I assume that if you're listening to this much, you already know everything about us. I've shared
not polite company.
Yeah. We're just telling each other how it is. Yeah. Like it was a spiritual community. But there were things that when you look at what makes a cult, a lot of those things were true about this group of people. So I didn't start really referring to it as that till years later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I wasn't like brainwashed or not like living my life, but it was
right.
It was a big part of my world.
I imagine having that experience, like in contrast with your own spirituality as it's developed now, makes you like have a really interesting perspective on people who are leaving high control religions, questioning them, or even just like developing their own spiritual perspective.
Yeah. And I think I'm even thinking about like someone who wants to start a business, like just even the ways that we've been socially conditioned to live life, like go to school, get a job, get married, have the kids, like just the sort of typical blueprint for life. So funny because now I'm like, oh, I've followed most of that actually by this point in a really weird roundabout way. But when someone kind of wants to break out of what everyone else expected them to do, I sort of think about like that's a cult too. The way society's conditioned us,
right?
Not to be like flippant about it, and I don't mean it as like a negative thing, but like we're all living within these conditioned social agreements. When someone decides they want to step out of that, it's like sliding out of the goo in the Matrix. So I think, I'm sure you had that experience as well, even if it was directed by your family. Like what a formative time to have your whole paradigm shift.
Yeah, I honestly think that is part of, in retrospect, at the time I was sort of like, even when in the way that we engage with the religion, like there were certain things that are like tenets of Christianity that even now I'm like, yeah, I can get behind that. Like the concept of God as a form of love and like loving your neighbor, like mostly the lovey things, like not so much the other stuff. But I'm like at the time I was sort of like, yeah, that seems fine to me. That makes sense to me. But I do think experiencing like at a pretty young age, a whole like paradigm shift, even in our sense of community and where that came from, I do think that makes me now, like it makes it very easy for me to be quite open to questioning some of the big, like ways in which we've been conditioned to just like view certain paths that you take in life as like the only path that you can take, because it is a little bit like, you experience this as reality for a while, and then suddenly, but like as I'm going through puberty, it's like, oh no, there's this other reality that you can open yourself to. That was like a pretty big shift in worldview, I think, for me. Again, I wasn't even that conscious of it at the time, but I do think that's probably why. Like for me, I'm never, I don't think, like very resistant to questioning some of the basic paths in life. And if my clients are wanting to like challenge certain things that they've been raised with, I'm like, yeah, giddy up, like let's go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel really threatened by that. To me, that's actually kind of exciting
Yeah.
because there's like
Yeah.
so much possibility in that.